Hello and happy Friday. I'm Adam Powley and this is the Classroom Powerups vlog where I talk about everything game-inspired design. This week I am going to be reflecting on battle mechanics and on open source worlds, so stick around. One of the key principles of game-inspired designs is the idea of feedback loops. And a feedback loop is really just a fancy way of saying assessments and getting students information that they can work with. Feedback loops need to be quick and they need to be painless, and we need to allow the students to get back into the action right away. One of the ways that I've done this is by trying to take my assessments from sort of boring traditional activities like quizzes and turn them into things that are more action-oriented. And one of the ways that I've done this is through my battle mechanics. Instead of having a traditional quiz on a day, what I've done is allow students to roll dice and to attack either an enemy or other members in the class. And we've done this through things like skirmishes and clashes, and eventually we're going to have boss fights. Tuesday was our first day back from our hurricane break of 3 weeks, and I wanted to check and see how the students were doing, if they'd remembered much from the beginning of the school year, where we had 13 days and we were off for 15. So what I put together was a clash system that we're going to be using later eventually for review anyways. In this case, the students were broken up into two large chunks, these guilds, which I've written about before, and the students know who's on which team. We have the Sentinels on one side, the Hunters on the other, and I have a whole display mechanism where students, if they get a question correct, they're allowed to roll dice, and they're able to use those as attack points, and the other students' points go down throughout the battle. This worked fantastically, and it allowed me to see what the students knew and how I need to tailor my next few days of instruction. The students had fun with this. They were getting into it, and it's only going to get better because as the year goes on, what's really going to be great is that they're going to then have superpowers, and they're going to be able to do things like attack not just the whole team, but maybe a specific player, or they can block certain things, or they can set up traps for each other. I think that Tuesday and Wednesday, because I see each of these kids every other day, went really well. There were a few bugs and tweaks that I needed to figure out. I use spreadsheets in order to do this. The students each have access to a spreadsheet, and when they roll the dice, they are able to fill in their attacks on the spreadsheet. That feeds into another display spreadsheet that I have up on the board, and the points are automatically deducted. There's a few things that I use for this. One is the program of Plickers. Plickers is a program where students have individual QR codes, and me using my phone at the front of the room can scan those QR codes to get their answers. So if they want to answer A, they hold the QR code one way. If they want to answer B, they hold it the other way, C and D, and so on. This works really well for multiple choice. It's fairly quick. I figure I can get about 35 to 40 questions done in about an hour and 15 minutes, which may seem not very long or not very short amount of time, but for a review game, that's pretty good. And using the Plickers cards, that creates a report that I can then use later to tailor my instruction to see what they remembered and what they hadn't. So thinking back, we were talking about the American Revolution before we left. We were talking about the Declaration of Independence, some colonial stuff even further back than that. For the most part, the students remembered a lot about the Declaration of Independence, but not a whole lot about the battles. So I know that I need to go back and change that. So the battle mechanics worked really well because the students didn't complain about having to come in and take a quiz or a pre-test or anything like that. They were excited and they were engaged, and the Plickers is nice because every student has to answer. It's not like a traditional sort of review game, maybe Jeopardy or something like that, where the group gets to answer. Every student answers. They're part of a bigger group, but they're still individually responsible and accountable for knowing the information, and I can tell which students struggled on which questions, and I can kind of build that more individual product for that. So thumbs up on the battle mechanics. The second thing I've been thinking about this week is the last couple of days where we've gotten back into a more open world system. If you're not familiar with this idea of open worlds, this is a game concept that is often used in things like massively multiplayer online role-playing games or MMORPGs. Sometimes they are called sandbox games, where the player in the video game has options. It's not like a traditional Super Mario Brother type game where you start on one side of the screen and then you face enemies as you move to the other side of the screen trying to get to point B. If you get to the end of the level, then you get to go to the next level. And an open world game or a sandbox game, you have a giant map, and on the map you can largely go wherever you want. The best example of this for me is something like the Elder Scrolls games Skyrim. In Skyrim, what's really neat is you are the main character, you're the hero, you're the warrior. You can learn magic, you can fight, you can learn to shoot bows and arrows. There's a whole mess of things that you can learn to do as the main character. Then, as you're going into the world, you can have access largely to pretty much anywhere on the map. You are limited by some of the game decisions that you make. There are missions that you have to go on. There's a storyline that encompasses everything that they want you to accomplish. So you start at point A, but you're making decisions throughout. And you can go to the northern corner of the map, but there might be enemies there that are too powerful for you. So the game encourages you not to go there. You can go to the southern part of the map, and that might be where the next part of your mission is going to be. There's also side quests that you can go on. The game doesn't force you to go on the side quests. You can choose to go there. I try to think of this Classroom as a big sandbox game or an open world game where students they're free to go where they'd like within some constraints that I put on the class. I try to offer them lots of choices and different activities. Eventually we're going to get to the point where they can propose to me what they would like to do, and we can create an assignment around that. Typically they have 4, maybe 6 missions that they can go on. We're going to have one main storyline mission soon where we're going to be participating in National History Day. But as long as they're kind of on that mission path, they can go off on little side quests. They can create historical heads. They can write poetry. There's lots of other things they can do. You can see in the background here, they can take ranking tests when they come into the class. They can work on battle prep, which is kind of note-taking in my classroom. So there's all these different options that they have when they come into the classroom, and there isn't one set path that I'm expecting them to go on. So between the battle mechanics, between the open world sandbox style games, I feel like the students are really engaged with coming in, and they look forward to coming into my class. I had a student ask the other day how the other teachers felt about, a couple of particular teachers, how they felt about me teaching this way, because they know that they have a much different style. And those teachers have been extremely supportive. And I've been extremely supportive of them because we're all a bit different. And I think that we all have different styles and we have different strengths. And this one is my particular strength. And if anybody's watching and they're pulling some inspiration through some of the things that I'm doing and can apply it to their rooms, that is fantastic. And if you like what you've seen here, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And again, join this community, and hopefully we can build great classrooms together. Thanks, and have a nice weekend.